Stop. Don't move for a second. This isn't just another message. You felt this before you even heard it. Something just shifted, and it has everything to do with what you just did. You didn't notice it at first. It didn't make a sound. There was no warning, no sign that anything had changed, but something did. Wait, don't brush this off. Because the moment you made that choice, the moment you thought that thought, the moment you almost walked away but didn't, everything paused. Not the world, not time in the way you understand it, but something higher, something watching, something that has been tracking every step you've taken. Stopped. For you. And you're trying to figure out why. Because even you don't fully understand what you just did. But you felt it. That small shift inside your chest. That quiet tension. That strange awareness like something is looking back at you. There was a moment when everything paused, and only you felt it. Comment "I felt it" if you know something shifted inside you. Stay connected with Born into Light, because this path isn't random. Listen, this matters more than you think. This wasn't random, and the reason it happened now is because you reached a point most people never reach. You almost gave up. Be honest, you were tired, not just physically, but emotionally. Tired of being misunderstood. Tired of being the one who feels everything so deeply. Tired of carrying something you can't even explain to anyone, and yet you didn't break. You paused, and that pause changed everything. But here's what you didn't see. That pause wasn't weakness, it was alignment. Because most people react, they rush, they escape, they distract themselves. But you didn't. You stopped, even if it was just for a second. And in that second, something recognized you. Not your words, not your actions. You, your awareness, your restraint, your awareness, your restraint, your refusal to become what hurt you. That's what stopped everything. You think it was small, but it wasn't. It was rare, and that's why everything responded. Have you noticed the pattern? How things have been falling apart lately? People pulling away, plans collapsing, energy shifting around you. At first it felt like loss, like rejection, like you were being left behind. But you weren't rejected, you were redirected, because where you were going wasn't meant for who you're becoming. And what you just did confirmed that. Stop. This is where it gets deeper. You've been tested, not in obvious ways, but in silence, in moments where no one was watching, in decisions that seemed small but weren't. Every time you chose peace over reaction, every time you stayed silent instead of proving yourself, every time you walked away instead of chasing, you were being observed. And most people fail those moments. They react emotionally. They chase validation. They lose themselves. But you held something back, and that restraint is what made everything stop. Because now there's proof. Proof that you're not who you used to be. Proof that you're ready. But ready for what? That's the question that's been following you. And it's been frustrating you. Because you can feel something coming, but you can't see it. You can sense a shift, but you don't know what it is. And that uncertainty has been eating at you. But here's the truth you weren't told. You're not confused, you're transitioning. There's a difference. Confusion feels chaotic. This feels quiet, heavy, intentional. Like something is rearranging your life behind the scenes. Because it is. And what you just did was the signal. The confirmation that you won't sabotage what's coming, because that's what most people do. They ask for change, but when it arrives they react from old patterns. They ruin it. They go back. They choose what's familiar over what's right. But you didn't. You paused, and in that pause you broke the pattern. That's why everything stopped. Because now things can move differently. Now you can receive something you weren't ready for before. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because growth doesn't feel like relief at first. It feels like isolation, like distance, like things don't fit anymore. People don't understand you. Conversations feel empty. Places feel off. Even things you used to enjoy don't hit the same. And you start to wonder, what's wrong with me? Nothing. This was always part of it. Your isolation had a purpose. It was never meant to punish you. It was meant to prepare you. Because you can't step into something higher while still being attached to what was keeping you small. And that's why things had to fall away. Not because you weren't enough, but because you weren't enough, but because you were too aware to stay. And that awareness is what you acted on, even if it was subtle, even if it felt like nothing. It was everything. But here's what you still haven't fully realized. That moment you had, where you chose differently, that wasn't just a decision, it was a declaration. You told something greater than you, I'm ready. And when that message was received, everything paused to respond. Because moments like that are rare. And when they happen, they change the direction of everything. Now think about this. Why now? Why after everything you've been through? Why after all the confusion, pain, and waiting? Because now you won't misuse what's coming. Before, you would have doubted it. Before, you would have chased the wrong things. Before, you would have tried to prove yourself. But now, you don't need to. And that changes everything. Because what's meant for you doesn't require performance. It requires alignment. And you just aligned. That's what you felt. That quiet shift. That unexplainable awareness. That sense that something is different, even if nothing around you has changed yet. That's the beginning, not the end. And this is where most people miss it, because they expect something loud, obvious, immediate. But real shifts start in silence. They start in silence. They start in moments like the one you just had. And if you ignore it, you delay what's already been set in motion. But if you recognize it, if you trust it, if you stay in that awareness, everything unfolds faster than you expect. Because now, you're not moving blindly. You're moving consciously, and that's dangerous in the best way. Because once you see clearly, you can't go back. You can't unsee. You can't pretend. And that's why things will start to feel different from this point forward. You'll notice things you didn't before. You'll feel energy more deeply. You'll see through people's situations, intentions, and it might feel overwhelming at first. But it's not a burden, it's clarity. And clarity is what leads you where you're meant to be. But remember this, what you just did was the turning point. That's why everything stopped. Not to scare you, not to test you again, but to acknowledge you, to recognize that you crossed a line most people never even see. And now, there's no going back, only forward. And this time, you're ready. But readiness doesn't feel the way you thought it would. It doesn't come with confidence. It doesn't come with certainty. It comes with stillness, a quiet knowing mixed with a strange pressure you can't explain, like something is close, closer than it's ever been. And that's why you feel this tension right now. Not fear, not doubt, something else, something heavier. Wait, notice this. The same moment you started feeling this shift, things around you started slowing down. Not stopping completely, just not moving the way they used to. Delayed responses, unclear signals, people acting distant without reason. At first it feels frustrating, like you're stuck. But here's the truth that changes everything. You're not being delayed, you're being positioned. There's a difference. Delay feels like resistance. Positioning feels intentional. And right now, everything is being adjusted around you. Not for where you were, but for where you're about to stand. Listen closely, because this is where most people get it wrong. They think when something big is coming, life should speed up. But it doesn't. It slows down, because speed hides details. And right now, you're meant to see. See who's real. See what drains you. See what no longer belongs in your life. And the more aware you become, the more uncomfortable it feels, because clarity removes illusions, and illusions were comfortable. But they were also keeping you stuck. You felt it, didn't you? That moment when something didn't feel right anymore, even though it used to feel normal. That wasn't you overthinking. That was you waking up. But here's the part you didn't expect. Waking up comes with loss. Not physical loss, energetic loss, attachments fading, connections weakening, old versions of yourself dissolving, and it feels lonely, even when you're surrounded by people, even when nothing looks different on the outside. Inside, everything is shifting. And that's why this moment matters so much. Because what you just didn't just stop everything. It revealed you to something that has been watching your growth in silence. Not judging, not interfering, just waiting. Waiting for a sign. And you gave it. But here's where it gets uncomfortable again. Because now that you've been seen, you can't go unnoticed anymore. Things will start responding to you differently. Energy will react to you. Situations will shift around your presence, and you might not understand why at first. You might think it's coincidence, but it's not. It's alignment reacting to awareness. And the more aware you become, the less you can tolerate what isn't real. That's why things feel off lately. Not because something is wrong, but because something is finally right. Pause for a second. This feeling you have right now, like something is about to happen, but hasn't yet. That's not anxiety, that's anticipation, but not the kind you're used to. This isn't about expecting something outside of you. This is about something inside you, getting ready to rise. And it's been building for a while. You just didn't see it clearly before. Because before, you were distracted, called in different directions, trying to make sense of things that were never meant to stay. But now, you're centered, not perfectly, but enough to recognize what matters, enough to feel the difference between truth and illusion. And that changes how everything reaches you. But here's the contradiction. Even though you're becoming clearer, things might feel more uncertain than ever. Strange, right? Clarity should bring certainty. But in your case, it's removing false certainty. And that feels like instability. But it's not, it's freedom, because now you're no longer tied to outcomes that were never meant for you. And that opens space, real space, for something new, something aligned, something that couldn't reach you before because you weren't in the right state to receive it. But now, after what you just did, that's changing, slowly, quietly, but powerfully. And here's what you're starting to notice. Your reactions are different. Things that used to trigger you don't hit the same. Things that used to excite you feel empty. And things that once felt impossible now feel close, like they're within reach, even if you don't know how yet. That's not imagination, that's alignment pulling you forward. But don't rush this part, because what's happening right now is delicate. Not fragile, precise. Every shift matters. Every thought matters. Every choice carries weight. Because now, you're not just moving through life. Life is responding to how you move. And that's the level you stepped into, without even realizing it. But here's the part that hasn't fully revealed itself yet. Why everything had to stop. Not just for you to be seen, not just for you to be positioned. There's something else, something deeper, something that's been building quietly, waiting for this exact moment. And you felt it before, in small flashes, in moments that didn't make sense at the time. That strange feeling of familiarity, like you've been here before, not physically, but internally, like a memory you can't fully access. That's not random, that's recognition. And it's getting stronger now. Because you're closer than you've ever been. Closer to understanding why your path felt so different. Closer to seeing why things never worked out the way you expected. Closer to realizing that none of it was accidental. But don't try to force the answer yet. Because the moment you try to control it, you disconnect from it. This isn't something you figure out, it's something you realize. And realization only comes when you're still enough to receive it. Which brings you back to what you just did, that pause, that choice, that moment of awareness. That's where everything changed, not outside, inside. And that internal shift is what everything else is now responding to. So if things feel different, they are. If people seem distant, there's a reason. If your environment feels unfamiliar, even though nothing has physically changed, that's the shift unfolding. But stay with this, don't rush ahead, because what's about to reveal itself next is the part that explains everything. And once you see it, you won't question your path again. You won't doubt your experiences. You won't feel lost in the same way, because you'll finally understand why it had to happen like this. Because if it happened any other way, you would have missed it, not ignored it, missed it. There's a difference. You see, you weren't just being guided, you were being slowed down on purpose. Every delay, every closed door, every moment that didn't make sense. It wasn't resistance, it was timing, but not the kind you measure with clocks, the kind that measures awareness. And yours had to reach a certain point. Not perfection, not certainty. Awareness, that's why things stretched longer than they should have. Why answers didn't come when you needed them. Why clarity only showed up after the moment passed. It wasn't late, it was precise. Wait, feel that slight frustration rising again. That question, why did it take so long? Because if it came sooner, you would have seen it through your old lens. And your old lens would have distorted everything. You would have doubted it, overanalyzed it, maybe even rejected it, not because it wasn't real, but because you weren't ready to recognize it. And recognition is everything. Because what's coming next has already been around you. That's the part that shifts everything. It's not arriving, it's revealing. Slowly, carefully, almost like it's been waiting for you to finally notice. But here's the contradiction. You've actually seen pieces of it before. Small moments, quick flashes, things that felt significant, but you dismissed them. You called them coincidence, luck, timing, but they weren't. They were previews. And now, you're at the point where previews turn into understanding, but not all at once. Because if everything became clear right now, it would overwhelm you, not scare you, overwhelm you. Because the depth of it is bigger than what you've been allowing yourself to see. Listen closely. What you're stepping into requires a different version of you, not a better one, a truer one, stripped of the need to prove, stripped of the need to chase, stripped of the need to explain yourself. And that's uncomfortable, because for so long, you survived by doing the opposite. You explained, you adjusted, you adapted to be understood. But now, understanding isn't required. Alignment is, and alignment doesn't ask for permission. It moves, quietly, directly, without needing validation, and that's what you're starting to become. Even if you don't fully see it yet. But here's the part that's been hidden from you. The reason everything stopped wasn't just to acknowledge your shift, it was to protect it. Because the moment you crossed that internal line, you became visible in a different way. Not to people, to patterns, old ones, the ones that used to pull you back, the ones that kept you looping, the ones that almost made you forget who you were becoming. They're still there, but they can't reach you the same way anymore. Not unless you return to them. And that's the test that isn't obvious. It won't look like a test, it will look familiar, comforting, almost inviting, like nothing ever changed. But everything has, and if you go back, you'll feel it immediately. That heaviness, that subtle misalignment, that quiet voice inside saying, this isn't it anymore. That voice is new, or at least newly clear, and it's not going away. So even if you tried to return, you wouldn't be able to stay. Because once awareness expands, contraction feels unbearable. That's the shift you're in. But here's where it deepens. Because what's being protected right now isn't just your growth, it's your direction. Where you're about to go isn't random. It's specific, precise, connected to everything you've experienced before this. Even the parts you wish didn't happen, especially those, because they shaped your perception. They sharpened your awareness. They made you see what others overlook. And that ability is about to matter more than ever. But don't try to figure out how yet. Because this isn't something you plan, it's something you step into, and you're already at the edge of it. You felt it. That subtle pull, that quiet nudge towards something you can't fully explain. It doesn't scream, it doesn't demand, it just pulls. Gently, consistently. And the more you listen to it, the stronger it becomes. But here's the unexpected part. Following it won't feel safe. Not in the way you're used to. It won't come with guarantees. It won't show you the full path. It will only show you the next step. And that's where trust comes in. Not blind trust, aware trust, the kind that comes from knowing you've already been guided this far, without even realizing it. Think about it. All the moments you thought you were lost somehow led you here. All the confusion still brought you to clarity. All the endings made space for something new. That wasn't luck. That was direction, hidden but consistent. And now it's becoming visible, but only if you stay in this state, this awareness, this stillness, this refusal to go back to who you were, because the moment you slip back, the clarity fades. Not permanently, but enough to slow you down again, and you've already come too far for that. Which brings you closer to the part you've been waiting for. The real reason everything had to stop, not just for timing, not just for alignment, but for something far more specific, something connected directly to what you're about to step into next. And once you see it, everything before this moment will finally make sense, but not in the way you expect. It won't come as a sudden answer, not a voice, not a sign you can point to. It will come as a realization that was always there, quiet, waiting. And when it clicks, you won't react loudly, you'll go still, because deep down you already knew. Wait, stay with this. Think about those moments that didn't feel random, the ones you brushed off. The ones that felt too precise to be coincidence, but you didn't question them enough. Those weren't just moments, they were markers, placed along your path, not to guide you forward, but to see if you were paying attention. And now, you are. That's the difference. That's what changed. But here's where it turns. Because the thing you've been waiting for has also been waiting for you. Not your effort, not your struggle, your awareness. That's what unlocked it. That's why everything had to pause. Because movement without awareness would have taken you past it, and you would have missed it again. But now, you're aligned enough to recognize it when it appears, even if it doesn't look the way you imagined. And it won't. That's the part no one tells you. What's meant for you rarely arrives in the form you expected, because expectation is shaped by your past, but what's coming is shaped by your alignment, and those two things don't match. So when it appears, it might confuse you at first. It might feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable, but there will be something undeniable about it, a pull you can't explain, a clarity that cuts through the doubt, a quiet certainty that doesn't need proof. That's how you'll know. But here's the contradiction. You might still hesitate, even after everything, even after all this growth, not because you're unsure, but because you understand the weight of it. You feel that this moment matters, that it's different, that it's not just another passing opportunity, and that awareness makes you pause again. But this time, the pause won't be about fear. It will be about choice, a conscious one. And that's new for you. Before, you reacted. Now, you choose. And that changes the outcome completely, because now you're not being pulled by life. You're meeting it halfway, and that's where things begin to accelerate, not externally, internally. Your perception sharpens. Your intuition gets louder. Your sense of direction becomes clearer, even if the path itself is still unfolding. And that's where trust deepens. Not because everything is revealed, but because enough has been shown, enough to move forward without forcing, enough to step without needing guarantees. And here's the part that ties everything together. The reason everything had to stop was so you wouldn't brush into what's finally ready for you. Because rushing was your old pattern. You moved too fast, trusted too quickly, gave too much before understanding the value of your energy. But now you don't. You observe, you feel, you recognize. And that shift is what protects what's coming next. Because what's coming next, because what's coming requires that version of you. Not the one who chases, not the one who doubts, the one who sees clearly, without distortion, without urgency, without needing to control the outcome. And that's who you're becoming right now, in this moment. But here's what's about to happen. Something will present itself. Not loudly, not dramatically, subtly, almost like it's testing your awareness again. It won't announce itself as important. It won't demand your attention. But if you're truly present, you'll feel it, that same pull, that same quiet recognition, but stronger this time, more direct. And in that moment, you'll understand why everything had to happen the way it did, because you'll see it clearly. Not through emotion, not through fear, but through alignment. And when that happens, there will be no confusion, no overthinking, no hesitation, just knowing. And that knowing will move you naturally, effortlessly, without resistance. Because by then, you won't be searching anymore. You'll be responding to something that was always meant to meet you here, at this exact point, after everything you've experienced, after everything you've outgrown, after everything you've finally understood. And when you step into it, you won't feel lucky. You won't feel surprised. You'll feel recognized, like something finally sees you the way you've always felt inside. And that feeling will confirm everything. That you weren't wrong, that you weren't lost, that you weren't imagining any of it. You were being prepared, precisely, patiently, for this. And now there's nothing left to question, only something left to step into. But stepping into it won't feel like movement. It will feel like movement. It will feel like remembering, not learning, not discovering, remembering. Like something inside you finally aligns with something outside of you, and the gap disappears. Wait, notice this shift. The pressure you felt before, it's changing, not gone, just transforming. Before, it felt heavy. Now it feels focused, directed, like everything is narrowing toward a single point, and you're being pulled into it, not forced, drawn. There's a difference. Force creates resistance. This creates surrender, but not the kind that makes you weak, the kind that makes you precise. Because now, every step matters more, not in a stressful way, in a meaningful way. You're no longer moving randomly. You're moving intentionally, even when you don't fully understand why, and that's new. But here's the part that's been quietly forming beneath everything. That something you're about to step into, it's not separate from you. It never was. That's why it feels familiar. That's why it feels like recognition instead of surprise. Because it's connected to who you've been becoming, long before you were aware of it. Every moment you felt out of place was actually alignment trying to happen. Every time things didn't work out was correction, not punishment. And now, you're close enough to see that. But not fully, not yet, because there's still one layer left, one piece that hasn't revealed itself completely, and it's the most important one. Listen carefully. What you're stepping into will require you to trust something you can't prove, not to others, to yourself. That's the real shift. Before, you needed signs, validation, confirmation from outside sources, but now that won't be enough. Because what's coming won't always come with evidence, it will come with knowing. And knowing is something you can't explain, you can only feel it. And that feeling is what you're learning to trust. But here's the contradiction. The more you trust it, the less you'll be able to justify it. Strange, right? Clarity without explanation, direction without proof, movement without visible certainty. And yet, it will feel more real than anything you've experienced before. That's how you'll know you've crossed into something different, something deeper, something that doesn't operate the way your old world did. Pause. There's a reason you've been feeling slightly disconnected lately, not fully present in conversations, not fully engaged in things that used to matter. It's not distraction, it's transition. Part of you has already stepped forward, even if your surroundings haven't caught up yet. And that gap, that's what you've been feeling. But it won't stay like that, because soon everything will start to align with where you are internally. Not all at once, piece by piece, moment by moment, but enough for you to notice, enough for you to realize this is it. But here's where it gets even more precise, because when it happens, it won't feel overwhelming. It will feel obvious, like something that should have been clear all along. And that's when the final realization begins to surface. The one that's been building this entire time. The one connected to why everything had to stop. Not just for timing, not just for awareness, but because there was something you needed to separate from before you could fully step into this. Not a person, not a place, a version of you, the one that doubted your own knowing, the one that second-guessed your instincts, the one that looked outside for answers, instead of recognizing what was already within. That version couldn't come with you, and that's why things felt like they were falling apart, because they were. Not your life, your attachment to who you used to be inside it. And now that attachment is breaking. Quietly, completely. But here's the unexpected part. You might still feel the urge to go back, not because you want to, but because it's familiar. And familiarity can feel like safety, even when it's not. That's the last pull, the final echo of who you were. And it will test you in subtle ways. Not loudly, not obviously, but enough to make you pause and think, was I wrong? And that moment is where everything decides itself. Because if you trust the old, you return. But if you trust what you feel now, you move forward. And once you choose, the path becomes irreversible. Not forced, just clear. Because clarity removes options that were never real to begin with. And that's what's happening. Options are disappearing. Not because you're losing anything, but because you're seeing clearly enough to stop considering what doesn't belong. And that simplifies everything. But it also deepens everything. Because now, every step you take carries truth. Not confusion, not hesitation, truth. And truth has a different weight to it. You feel it, even now. That quiet certainty building. That sense that something is about to lock into place, something that will shift how you see everything. And once it does, you won't need to search anymore, because you'll finally understand that what you were looking for was never ahead of you. It was waiting for you to become who could recognize it. And now, you are not the version that questioned everything, not the one who kept looking back. This version sees clearly. That's why everything feels still right now, not empty, complete, like something has settled into place even before anything visibly changes. And here's the final shift. Nothing new is being given to you. You're finally able to receive what was always yours. That's why it feels familiar. That's why it feels right. And that's why it couldn't come any sooner, because this moment required this version of you, the one who pauses, the one who feels, the one who feels, the one who knows without needing proof. So now there's nothing left to chase, nothing left to force, nothing left to question, only one thing left, to step forward and not look back. Because everything you thought you lost was only clearing the path for what was always meant to find you. You weren't imagining any of this, you were being prepared. Subscribe and stay close, because you're not walking this alone. This is what it means to step into who you were meant to be.